So we're halfway there going through the commander decks for Outlaws at Thunder Junction, and today's topic is going to be the wildcard deck, which a few people had expressed interest in my thoughts on. It looks like it's going to be a Is-It focus, maybe Spell Slinger type, which I guess shouldn't really be that much of a surprise, definitely one of the more popular color combinations. But there are some pretty cool cards in here that may have application beyond that, so without further ado, let's take a look at the wildcard commander deck for Outlaws at Thunder Junction. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really do appreciate the support as I'm getting back into the full swing of things. I'm really happy to have everybody here and on board. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, feel free to click that subscribe button, and if you want to click the notification bell so you get alerts when new videos are posted, feel free to do that as well. If you don't, I get it. There could probably be a lot of clutter, but would certainly be really cool if you did. Now, we're going to take a look at this, kind of just jumping right into it like we've talked about the first two, where it was the Most Wanted, which is Olivia, and I forget the name of the other guy off the top of my head, but that one was kind of alright. I didn't find it to be super impressive personally, but it's definitely not bad. And then we talked about the Desert Bloom, which looks like a lot of fun. Maybe not the most powerful of the four decks, but it does look like it has potential to be fun. So we'll take that, you know, in terms of, remember, it is a game at the end of the day. You want to have a good time, so there's nothing wrong with having lower power level decks. Just to kind of open up out of the box and play with friends. Now this one, the face commander is Stella Lee Wildcard. It is 1 blue-red legendary creature human rogue. It says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. You can tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if you cast 3 or more spells this turn. So, you get some impulse draw usage if you cast more than 1 spell in a turn, which is obviously good. And copying any instant or sorcery is certainly a bit strong. I don't think it's too strong or anything, but it's definitely good. That's why the restriction of needing to cast at least 3 spells is existent there. But blue and red have a bazillion cards that want to be copied and combo well with copies, so it all makes sense from that perspective. I think she's just a pretty solid commander. Not necessarily the best Is-It commander we have access to, but it'll work well within this deck. And I think there's really not too much to say about it beyond it's decent for what it's setting out to accomplish. Now, the other face commander is Eris, Roar of the Storm. This is 8 blue-red. It's a legendary creature elemental warlock. It costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard, as flying and prowess. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with flying and prowess. Again, this is actually pretty strong. It's not that cheap to cast, but if you have a 1-drop spell, a 2-drop spell, 3-drop spell, etc., you can lower the cost of this pretty darn quick, and honestly, you can probably mill stuff as well, or get stuff engraved by discarding to bring his cost down quite a bit. He's, you know, if you have 4 different mana values among instant sorcerers and grave, he only costs 1 red and 1 blue to play, which is certainly really strong. Flying and prowess is good, and then that second spell each turn giving you a 4/4 dragon with flying and prowess on its own right is going to start to beef the board up pretty quick for sure, and I think it's actually, in my personal opinion, my preference between the two commanders. I just think that they may have somewhat different playstyles as well. Stella's kind of setting out to do something a bit different, but I do think also that Stella might slot really well into already existing Is-It decks too, so there's a lot of different avenues to consider in terms of, you know, which one is better, quote-unquote, or which one you want to play. I like Eris a little bit better, but I think both of them are pretty solid. Forger's Foundry is 2 and a blue artifact. Tap for blue. When you spend this mana to cast an instant or sorcery spell of mana value 3 or less, you may exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard as it resolves. Then you can pay 3 and 2 blue to cast any number of spells from among cards exiled with Forger's Foundry without paying their mana costs. Activate only as a sorcery. So, over time when you play these spells, you can go ahead and tap this to exile them. You kind of get a stockpile, and then you can pay 5 on a later turn to cast all of those without paying their mana costs. It's definitely a cute card that has a lot going for it. You do have, of course, the restriction of 3 or less, but there are plenty of low-cost, powerful cards in both blue and red, so just kind of a lot to look forward to there in terms of different play combos that you can do. I'm curious what people think on this one. That 5 is a little steep, I think, but being able to cast all the spells without paying mana cost is really strong. It is sorcery speed, but still, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I think it's definitely going to be you know, something that can explode if you time it right. Lock and Load is 2 and a blue sorcery. Draw a card, then draw a card for each other instant or sorcery spell you've cast this turn. So it's like Storm, but for drawing, which is interesting. And then it has Plot 3, blue, which means you can basically exile it face down for its plot cost, and then on a future turn, play it for 0. Definitely going to be one of the best uses for this. Obviously, if you're able to get it on a turn where you're casting all kinds of low-cost spells, and then draw to stock your hand up. Not a bad card overall, and that plot mechanic definitely does add a unique element to it, because otherwise, you know, there are probably better draw cards. I think you can definitely make this work, though, if you play that in. Thunderclap Drake, probably one of the better ones here in this deck. It's 1 and a blue creature Drake with flying. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. You can pay 2 and a blue, sacrifice Thunderclap Drake. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So that's definitely a bit of a unique effect for that second part. It actually combos pretty well with Eris because you can still continue to reduce his costs in the game, so you might even be able to reduce command tax a little bit. But generally speaking, copying a spell a bunch of times, no matter what the rarity of the mana cost of the spell is going to be pretty powerful. And not to mention, he allows you as well to reduce the cost of stuff. Just overall, pretty good card. I don't know why you wouldn't play it if you're playing a spell slinger strategy, because it's making, in most cases, your 2-cost spells are now only going to cost 1, which means you can do a lot more for a lot less. Crackling Spellslinger is 3 red human wizard with flash. When it ETBs, if you cast it, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm. Again, pretty solid card overall. Not exactly very strong, but that's not what you're looking for there. 5 mana, you can essentially copy the next spell you play, but giving it Storm means you could ladder it up into various different, you know, applications. Playing even something like a Lightning Bolt, you know, if you cast it a bunch of times, you can do a ton of damage. It's kind of cool. I am a little concerned about the mana cost, but I do think as a whole, it's a really good card. So people are probably going to like this one. I just don't know how well it's going to work in some already established Spellslinger strategies. I think if it costs 1 less, it might be a lot better, but it also might be too strong. So that's just my thoughts on that one. Elemental Eruption is 4 red sorcery. Create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with flying and prowess, and it has Storm. So while this does cost 6, there are tons of ways to reduce the cost, as we've seen in the deck, and getting a giant army of dragons with flying that also have prowess is pretty damn good. I think this card is actually really solid. It just, you know, depending on whether or not your deck is designed to be able to reduce costs, or if you're going for a more low-cost spell, obviously it's not going to fit super well into that. But there's absolutely ways to use this card, and it'll combo even well with the commander who can make these tokens. You're just going to have a pretty big board that can be buffed pretty easily. It's a cool card, no doubt in my mind. Now, we've got Pyretic Charge. It is 4 and a red sorcery. Discard your hand, then draw 4 cards. For each card discarded this way, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. And then it has Plot 3 and 1 red. So again, we talked about Plot and kind of how it works. It's a really cool mechanic that's sort of like a foretell that you have a bit more control over. Lord knows red needs draw power wherever it can get it, and if you do have ways to reduce this, it can definitely help you out. Drawing 4 off of it is good, and being able to potentially buff creatures up is certainly an added bonus. But I do like this card a lot for various red strategies, especially because of the plot cost, and using it on a future turn, it basically ensures you the ability to get some resources back, which is one of the things I think red struggles with the most, kind of more than anything else. So it should be interesting to see you know, how that one kind of shakes up. Now, we've got Smouldering Stagecoach. This is 3 and a red artifact vehicle. Smouldering Stagecoach power is equal to the number of instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard. Whenever it attacks, the next instant and the next sorcery you cast this turn each have Cascade, and it is crew 2. So pretty powerful stuff going on there, especially if you can combo it with a higher cost spell. The fact that it gives the instant and the sorcery Cascade means you can cast, you know, one of each and Cascade twice. Pretty good. You're still getting cast triggers off the Cascade as well. So there's a lot of, you know, ways to play into that storm mechanic. I'm a little hesitant on vehicles in general because some of them are like too balanced for their own good, and then some are just like not good at all. This one definitely seems decent. Obviously it has to attack, so you have to kind of plan for that, but what you get out of it is certainly a strong reward. So that's you know, that's definitely something to consider when determining whether or not you think this card's actually going to be good. And finally, for this one, we've got Leyline Dowser. It is 2 colorless artifact. Pay 1, mill a card. You may put an instant or sorcery milled this way into your hand. You can tap and untap legendary creature you control, then untap Leyline Dowser. pretty solid. I mean, being able to mill some stuff, get it back into the hand, and then do some combos to, I don't know, to keep doing it. Certainly not terrible. I think it's decent. I'm sure it's probably going to be more useful in certain combos than anything else as just a standalone card. But it is pretty good, and I think it's at least worth a look. Again, it's not anything game-breaking, but it's definitely not a bad card either. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if there were combos I was missing with it that I wasn't thinking of, so who knows, it could be possible too. As far as reprints go in this deck, there really aren't many of note from a value perspective, but it's still a pretty cool deck that has a lot of solid cards, and I would always just say kind of look at the value of things and make the decisions for yourself. This one doesn't really impress me a ton as a sealed deck necessarily, in terms of like, is this going to be as fun to open out of the box and play as the Desert Bloom? But if you're into blue-red and you really like Spellslinger strategies, there's a lot here for you. So it's probably worth taking a look at and seeing what you think. That's going to do it for this video, though. I've shared my thoughts. I want to hear yours. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this deck. Will you be buying it? Do you think some of the other ones are better? And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.